As we celebrate June Dairy Month, the STtalks by STgenetics and Uplevel Dairy podcasts have banded together to shine a bright light on a collection of great dairy stories. We are rooted in the same core value to provide insightful information to the modern-day dairy producer and believe sharing these uplifting stories may motivate a new mindset or change for your own dairy story.
I'm Peggy Coffeen, host of the Uplevel Dairy podcast, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
And I'm Laura Demmer, host of STtalks, which you can find on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and Deezer.
In this series, you will hear incredible dairy stories that follow milk along on a journey. From dairy farmers who are opening their doors and inviting consumers in for a seat at their table, to those who work behind the scenes to add value to every molecule of milk, and even a milk drinker who is fueling up to win the race of her life. That's what we have in store for you on STtalks and the Uplevel Dairy podcast during the special June Dairy Month series. And our guest today from Dairy Management Incorporated to continue in this conversation as we talk about the magic of milk this week on our partnership between STgenetics and Uplevel Dairy for the special podcast series. Paul, you're joining us from Dairy Management Incorporated. Paul, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, Peggy. Paul Ziemnisky. I am the Group EVP over Wellness, Science, and Innovation, I guess now Business Development. So I work on behalf of our farmers, and I lead what we call the innovation priority. We've got at DMI really 4 key priorities for our farmers. The first is reputation. Both protect the right to farm, protect our farmers out there, but also reputation in terms of driving marketing and communications, whether it's the nutrition affairs all the way through to how we reach consumers and third-party influencers. Another part of what we do at the checkoff is we also do exports and how we drive growth in exports, whether it's funding the U.S. Dairy Export Council or working with big partners to grow dairy internationally, U.S. dairy internationally. The third piece is, the sustainability environment and how we help farmers, again, advance there, but really getting outside investors in to help support our farmers there. I lead what we call, again, the innovation priority. I always tell people it's the best one because I lead nutrition science, product science and technology, and then really finding new places to grow incremental sales for the industry across channel. So that's through partners and growth platform work we do with and through the whole industry.
So you are looking for more ways to move a lot of milk.
Definitely. And my focus is really incremental sales, because when you look about the brands, what channels you do, a lot of those brands are taking share from each other. And my vantage point is how do I inspire the industry where to grow in new places?
So Paul, as you work to uncover greater value and move this larger volume of milk like we had just spoken about, what do you consider to be the wins for dairy farmers and the progress DMI is making?
Well, I'll look back long term and then talk about more of the future. Long term in this area of growth, we've invested in domestic food service partnerships for over a decade now, moving billions of incremental pounds through McDonald's, Domino's, Taco Bell, and more recently, like General Mills. And so our recent wins, if you look at, we're helping Taco Bell go into the shake business with their chillers. It started as a concept led by our on-site scientist and our marketing team. And, it's in test market here in Dallas, and the goal would be to prove that out and be national by the end of the year. If you step back a couple of years ago, we went to Taco Bell and said, you don't have a dairy beverage. Outside of a fake creamer and coffee, now the creamer's real. And now we've launched new things like whips and freezes to really redefine their beverage platform. And that's on top of, we always talk about, we've helped them move from dairy as a garnish to dairy as a hero. So if you look at like the latest piece we've built in our portfolio is the grilled cheese burrito, which is moving a lot more cheese than when we started working with them. If you guys all remember the Doritos Los Taco, which is a sprinkling of cheese. And so that's just one example, but across, most recently at Domino's, where we've helped them launch cheesy-based dips, loaded tots last year. Right now, it's updating their pizza portfolio, the New York-style pizza. McDonald's last year, it wasn't a lot of heavy innovation. It was more, you guys remember the Grimace Shake. And so how do we bring dairy relevancy? So a lot of that, what we do is it's not just innovation, but it's marketing of dairy and the billions of dollars that they put behind the brands so we don't have to, and it's not all on the farmer's back, but it's on these big companies' backs. And then, the last thing is, as I talked about, a newer partnership is General Mills. We felt the yogurt category had flatlined about 4 years ago, and they got kind of the players in the category. Yogurt's the most powerful health and wellness product in the world, and it was under marketing. People were pumping sugar, and we're like, you guys are missing the boat. Yogurt's got protein, it's got amazing functional benefits. And we went to General Mills and said, we talked to others, and General Mills, we showed the facts to them, and they talked about rebuilding their portfolio. And so we've helped them launch things like to more relevancy for youth as well. So you see like Haagen-Dazs enter the category with cultured cream, to most recently in Q1 of this year, they launched Yoplait Protein, which is basic things like that. But now you see elevation in the category. And so, if you want to shift to the future is amazingly bright for dairy. We've done in the last 12 months 3 growth landscapes. And again, like I said, my job I view is how do I motivate the industry to think bigger of where we can take us to new areas. And so landscape 1, we looked at the health and wellness space. And so we looked at farmer roadmaps. We looked at CDC, and where consumers are investing their dollars. And you look at health and wellness, it's the number 1 area of consumer disposable spend. When they have money, that's where it's spending, whether it's a health club or healthy food to, all the skincare, that's all health and wellness, right? And that's where they're spending. Yet we got 93% of consumers domestically are biologically unhealthy, and then as we size spaces, we quantify with over 12,000 consumers, where are they spending their dollars? Where are they dissatisfied where they're spending those dollars? And so when we ended up racking up, there was about 37 spaces. And we said, where can dairy win in those 37 spaces? And we're doing science in some of them, like cardiovascular health, but that's where you go to the doctor. Or diabetes health. That's where you go to the doctor. We said, where are they spending their own dollars? And so we started, when you start looking at these areas, we end up with 14 areas, $350 billion they're spending. And of that 350, they're highly dissatisfied, over 50% dissatisfaction. So being the finance person I used to be, it's like, you take 50% of 350, you're at, and when you add it up, it was actually $200 billion in play in areas like bone health, physical athletic performance, energy, also emerging spaces like sleep, stress, cognition, heart health, weight management. And you think about dairy's role in all those spaces. Bone health. Show me a product that delivers better on bone health than milk. But the industry, as we started looking at this, the dairy category is under marketing our health and wellness benefits. So the first thing I did is I got with the team, we went to the leadership of the industry, and we said, we need to bring more modern health and wellness claims to the category. So right now, my team's leading claim modernization against $150 billion of that $350 billion space right now. So we're looking at, and we looked at it from the mindset of the consumer. So when they think bone health, they think of growth and performance. And so we're looking at, we call this growth and perform space. Bone health, physical athletic performance, and then sustained energy. And we're building a claims playbook for the industry, literally a playbook of how to talk about it to every age cohort, and from pre-birth to boomers. And so here are great examples of that is, for moms with kids 2 to 5, dairy helps maximize your kid's growth potential because it's got 13 essential nutrients, or those simple language. And so you talk to a millennial, hey, dairy helps keep you fit, helps you stay in control because the benefits associated with it. It's pretty simple, but we're building a playbook of how to talk about that. So that, that's one growth landscape. That's one work stream alone. Well, also in the health and wellness space, my team's also developing product concepts and how to attack those growth spaces. So we're like, if you're a beverage, how do you take milk and go into the bone health, and how do you talk about it? Or how do you go into digestive health, or how would you talk and market weight management? And then I've got an R&D team, right? I talked about product science team. On the product science side, I'm like, how do I attack these with dairy molecules, right? We've got amazing bioactives. So a great example is lactoferrin. we're starting to commercialize lactoferrin across the U.S., right? But lactoferrin in milk, you'd have to drink 21 glasses of milk to get the immunity benefits of lactoferrin. Unless I go to the product science team and say, are there technology ways we can concentrate it and put it back into milk, put it back into yogurt, so we can have stronger claims. So I'll just say that right now, on behalf of our farmers, we've patented technology. So the farmers own the technology to encapsulate and protect bioactives, by the way, with a dairy component. So is that protection? So imagine putting lactoferrin back into a concentration level into milk to say you got immunity milk. Or tryptophan, which if you guys saw the Wall Street Journal article a couple of weeks ago talking about tryptophan in milk and sleep, tryptophan's in milk, and so I can concentrate at a higher level, and you can, we talk about sleep before bed. Imagine actually having a milk, says milk with, sleep and strong enough levels so that you can actually help people sleep. So that's the level of looking at growth spaces and saying, how do we bring science and technology, and how do we help the industry commercialize it, whether it's doing the technology side or bringing concepts and prototypes to show and tell the industry how to do it. So that's just one of the growth spaces and landscapes. There's two others we've done also, which is beverage. We've identified where the consumers are spending their money in beverages and at retail. And we're like, okay, here are the different ways that consumers think about the beverage spaces, whether it's a health and wellness moment, it's a comfort relaxation moment after a long day of working out, and I want a treat. And what each person thinks about beverages. And so a fun fact about beverages, this is what we mean by there's different consumers and their different need states. So there's an optimizer. They're your explorer. They try new cool things like the recessed carbonated mental health beverage. There's a minimizer, and the minimizer is the one that buy all. So they're the ones that I don't want any sugar. They're the no people. No sugar, nothing. I just want some flavor to throw in there. I'm watching my weight. They're the no fun people, I call them. But that category is declining. We're taking milk share back this year, and we have with all the value-added innovation stuff. So we're growing share against them because there's also the optimizer. There's an explorer. So when you start to look at beverage, we're helping the industry saying, how do you attack beverage? And so that's another landscape. And that alone, when you look at the full beverage at retail, it's 175 billion, and we have about 20 billion of the 175 billion. So think about that. So if you think about the consumer, so my job is to help the industry modernize who the targets are, what the moments are, what their flavors or profiles are looking at. We even did a palette. Like, do they want bubbly? Do they want carbonation? Do they want type of flavor profiles? And the last one is food service. Again, food service is a huge opportunity for the industry. But oftentimes you talk to the food service providers out there, because I work with the big, McDonald's, Domino's, Taco, but I also talk to a lot of other leaders, and they'll tell me dairy processors are amazing for quality service, but they don't bring them ideas to grow. But I'm sitting at Taco Bell, and you got the chicken guy saying, hey, make a shell out of chicken. I don't have the cheese guys coming in and say, make a shell out of cheese, so I have to do it. Until they do that, that's what the checkoff's going to do for our farmers. Not one beverage guy has been into Taco Bell saying how you can grow beverages with dairy, except for me. I've been doing it for 8 years. Until someone takes it over, I'm going to do that for our farmers because we drive billions of pounds of dairy through these players. And so we just did a beverage landscape. And billions of dollars of where these growth spaces are. So a great example, I've told the industry this for about 5 years. Chicken is growing rapidly. You go down south, there's chicken everywhere, from Raising Cane's to whatever, right? You've got Zaxby's, and then every corner some other emerging chicken place. Well, the issue with chicken, 86% of burgers have cheese, less than 20% of chicken sandwiches. So we have to think about selling to these chicken players and showing them how you can win with cheese. And by the way, these other chicken players also, most of them don't have coffee. They don't have shakes. They don't have dairy sides, desserts. So you run the math in a segment of retail that's $45 billion and growing 10% a year. How would you like to grow your business 10% a year? I tell them, I'm like, go to chicken and start to put some business development sales guy. But until they do, I'm going to try to represent our farmers and inspire these guys and work and bring them concepts to do it. So we did this food service landscape, and these big pockets, the top 5 pockets of growth, it's $160 billion at play for us. And a great example is coffee and tea. You think about, we think about McCafe. We helped modernize McCafe for McDonald's. But most places out there don't have the assortment. I mean, in the quick serve restaurants, don't have coffee and tea. Yeah, if you look at the middle, we just looked at middle school kids. 1 out of every 2 middle school kids is drinking a hot or cold coffee a week. 1 out of every 2 middle school. So they're moving out of carbonated soft drinks, right? And so that's where they're going. They're going to Starbucks or hanging out at their local boba tea place. So we're out there saying, hey, let us help you grow your business. We'll bring boba tea in. We'll help you build a coffee portfolio like we did at McDonald's. But we win. Think about and how we win is we show them, you're selling your carbonated soft drinks for $1. You can sell a dairy-based beverage for $3. So even if you get 10% of your consumers, going from $1 to $3, you're picking up 30 cents per check. And in an area of inflation, it's a huge opportunity for retailers. So what we do is we build these case studies and go talk to these food service players and say, this is how you can grow. So, and we do a lot of concepts to show them, hey, here's how you can grow with butter, to bring butter in breakfast. Here's how you can grow at day parts. And so like coffee and tea is an example, or chicken, as I was mentioned, but we also do a lot of other inspiration, like, hey, you're missing dairy desserts to grow traffic and this and that. So that's what I was talking about. What our team is really trying to do is look at those 3 big growth spaces I just talked about, work and go to the industry and represent, when I say the industry, the retailers and food service, but we also work with all the dairy processors just and do top to tops and say, there's our big growth spaces. Here's concepts. How else do you need us to help you guys work with these big players to invest to grow dairy? So again, and those spaces are all incremental. They're not taking share, because we get a lot of people that'll call us and want us to partner. But if it's Burger King just want to still share from McDonald's, the farmer doesn't win. So I want to make sure the farmer wins. My job is to drive incremental sales, not still share. And so that's why we try to be inspirational and try to do these road shows with food service and retailer companies and say you can do a lot, and consumer branded companies, there's a lot you can do with dairy. One other thing too, here's a great example. The biggest food expo for retail is called Natural Products Expo. And we went there and we had an 1.5-hour session on how to grow in health and wellness. So that was the headline, but embedded in there was how you can do it with dairy. So we were the biggest there's about 80,000 people attend this, and then more than another 100,000 view it online. But at this show, we were the most attended presentation, 39 retailers, hundreds of people in the room. But in that presentation, we picked these health and wellness spaces. Again, we talked about the sizes, but we showed how dairy products are addressing those things to kind of say you can win with dairy for the future. And the cool thing is you're seeing a mind shift. You had all these people puffering around plant-based for the last 5 years, but now they're all realizing they need to go back to real natural dairy, whole foods and stuff like that. So that's why I said plant-based is declining every dairy category. We're taking share back in every category. And what's important is a lot of those companies there, they have ingredients. And, they were looking at plant-based. Now they realize they're better off with dairy ingredients, whether it's whey protein or milk protein isolates or whatever. So it's not just helping our end products, it's helping our ingredients business. They realize they can clean label it, they can deliver better product efficacy and stuff like that using dairy. So that was an example of where we do a lot of this growth work, take it to people who are users of dairy as well. So it's not working just directly with dairy companies, but like the big brands at retail who are using it, whether they're putting it into a ready-to-drink coffee or a bar or some sort of other scoopable product. So that's just examples when we talk about that innovation priority my team does, is we size, inspire, do concepts, and we'll partner with people, but on the partner front, it's expectations of major co-investments. We do a lot of the upfront proof with them taking the products to market. That's where We've worked with Domino's where they put $1 million just in a month against a big campaign as an example of that.
Wow. Oh, Paul, so you have just given us kind of this overview of the work that you are leading through at DMI and through these initiatives. And holy cow, like this is some exciting stuff to hear. And our dairy producers that are listening are going to be really excited to hear really where their dollar is going through checkoff and the results that they can see, that they can taste for themselves, literally at some of these major food service businesses. And the health and wellness space that you talked about as well is such an exciting space. And what it really sounds like a lot of your work is it's identifying where those areas of opportunity lie between what's missing on the consumer side. What do they want that they currently don't have access to, whether it's for health and wellness or just for taste and enjoyment? But then also what's missing on the provider side, whether it's a Taco Bell that's just waiting for someone to come in and say, we can help you. We can help you increase your revenue, increase your sales, and we can do it all by adding some dairy in. And earlier in the conversation too, you mentioned the Grimace Shake. So I guess I have you to either pick a bone with or thank, because I have 2 little boys at home here, and they were obsessed with the Grimace Shake. I didn't even know what it was. And I have a song stuck in my head about the Grimace Shake. So thank you, but not thank you, Paul, for infecting our youth with an appetite for dairy through the Grimace Shake. But that's marketing. That's marketing at its finest, right? Is being able to hit up these different needs. And when we look at whether it's health and wellness or food service, there's a couple of things that really stand out. And one of them is the health benefits that are associated and that you're able to draw through by, as you mentioned before, really identifying these opportunities, whether it's sleep, bone density, just these areas for performance improvement and cognitive improvement that we can tie to milk. But then there's also, the other aspect is the consumer's appetite for enjoyment. And what's enjoyment? I mean, enjoyment is extra cheese on everything, at least in my world. And and I think others are like that too. And that's what you're driving with this innovation, is really all of these connection points that lead back to, as you said, incremental sales increases that are a winning game and a winning strategy for the dairy producer. And so thank you for enlightening us on the work that you're leading and the results that we are seeing and experiencing from the seats where Laura and I get to sit as consumers ourselves, as moms of children. And Laura, I'll send you the Grimace Shake song so that your children can play it on repeat in your car as well. And you can thank Paul for that later.
Thank you. We've tried it and it was a big hit, but we did not listen to the song. So I think maybe we'll just keep consuming.
Oh yes, the song will live on. But I just share that as like, this is the results and the impact, right? Like when you can create a phenomenon that my 6-year-old is singing, that to me says that the work that you're doing is pulling through all the way.
And that's the partner side, the inspiration side. But one thing we probably don't talk enough about is if not for the farmers and their foresight to invest in science, Peggy, I think the industry would be in a different state. When you think about, we've invested close to over the last decade close to $10 million in whole fat science. And you think when we started the investments in that space, where was whole milk at? Right? It was when I used to be at Kraft Foods and we were throwing fat-free cheese around. Like, how do we talk about this? Now you don't think about fat-free cheese. It's like the whole fat milk went from 23% of sales to like 46% of sales in a decade. Because of science. We proved the science. We educated people. The whole fat doesn't cause any issues. It's actually beneficial for you. The whole dairy matrix and how all the molecules of milk, they play like an orchestra together. And so you don't consume just the fat and milk. You consume the whole fat and all the other functional the great things for your body that work together like this orchestra. And, it took a decade plus to change the mindset of healthcare providers, of the influencers, of consumers. And we've seen an amazing shift, right, with butter and that. And that science team that farmers invest in, we also are doing amazing things and we're also looking at the health and wellness spaces. We talked about all these $350 billion of spaces and saying, how do we do, again, not just the claims work, but new discovery of benefits? And that led us to say, hey, Mayo Clinic's the number one healthcare provider in the world in terms of reputation, right? Both for doctors and consumers. And so we went to Mayo, and Mayo was following the protocol of the American Heart Association, low fat, everything. And we started working with them and show them the science. And they actually have a fellow going through the dairy science right now. And they just published that they said, science is out there that, whole fat dairy doesn't hurt you, and so in less than 2 years, just having them go through the science and having them publish that there is no negative associations with whole fat dairy, when they were very tied to the American Heart Association, and the American Heart Association is the one, that they don't want to come off their old standing for 30 years. So that's an example of us. And so where we are with Mayo Clinic is we've started one research study around cardiovascular. They've just approved 2 more. And the goal is, imagine Mayo Clinic leading the research. Imagine Mayo Clinic publishing that, hey, dairy helps with cardiovascular health. Dairy's research around artery health and lung function and the benefits of the lung function. It starts to stack. And so it goes... our goal is to have Mayo basically publishing our claims for us in a couple of years. Concurrently, we're working with Mayo because they're the number one consumer portal and healthcare portal. If you go to their website, there's a lot of things we put on there around the health of dairy and benefits for families and benefits for kids and boomers. We've held events, and they control it all. We're just arming them with the data, but we've had research and outreach events both for consumers and healthcare providers. In fact, the Mayo dairy site that went live back in February has already got 12 million active users, engaging with it. So think about that. That's some of the things we're trying to do, is use them as the voice of dairy's health and benefits, and with the most, the strongest provider out there. And that's just, I think, the tip of the iceberg, because we're looking in all these spaces like who else can we work with and to be the voice for bone health, who can be the voice for physical and athletic performance, and who can do the science with us in this the modern science and technology research process that used to take 10 years. We'd have to do 50 studies over 10 years. The science is changing, which is cool. So I can get stuff done in 2 years. It used to take 10. So it's an exciting place in science right now, we feel, for dairy. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg and connecting the big where the consumers are spending, but tying it back to the research. And it's all led by the farmers, because if farmers aren't putting research around dairy, who's going to do it? No one. So that's what we do, representing our farmers. And that's where I said the farmers brought that foresight to invest in nutrition science. And I didn't talk to you guys, but we've built an AI database. You talk about science and technology. We've built an AI database where we've measured, and we've taken samples of milk from across the U.S., measured every molecule in milk, and this database is built on the size of the molecule, and you can literally say, I want to know every health research that's ever been done on lactoferrin, and it'll give it to you in 3 seconds. If you were to go and do this, I know Eve talked a little bit about it, it used to take you 6 months and $500,000 to have an outside consultant do it. Well, then if you had the question for that consultant, it's okay, it'll be another $500,000 and I'll be back another 6 months. So this, and then the cool thing is, if you guys said, I want to know what dairy does for skin, or I want to know what research is out there in associations, you can put in there like a great example is joint health. I still think that's a huge ripe area for us because anybody who plays athletes or athletic sports from pickleball to football, most of the injuries in athletics are joints. We've got a lot of dairy science right on bone and muscle. So I'm trying to get the team and say, as we think about the future, how do we the trifecta of joint, muscle, and bone and own that but I can search joint health in there and see how pharma may be researching a bioactive or molecule in milk that has dairy in it and say, hey, look, we need to use this molecule concentrated or encapsulated, put it into milk and say, we've got this ultimate joint juice, our own real joint juice, not fake joint juice that you can get at Costco. So that's how fast the technology is moving and how we're engaging and using technology to help. And I've got my nutrition science team. I can say, hey, I need you to tell me how quickly I can do some research around that molecule to prove if we can do this. I got my product science team. What dairy research center across the U.S. would we work with to look at technologies around this and products associated with this? Could we put it in a cheese, or is it already in cheese? So it's a cool time in this health and wellness space, but it's because we've probably like I said at the beginning, we've under-marketed health and wellness for dairy, and that's where we want the industry to be louder and prouder about that health and wellness piece. And we're going to arm them with the tools and facts. But then there's these still big product growth spaces. I was talking about pizza still growing, chicken, burgers, coffee. So there's that, and then there's exports. And so our product science team also works heavily with our U.S. Dairy Export Council, who will come to us and say, okay, for dairy, we expect to grow, or we need to grow in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, but we're going to need technology. I need the cheese to do this. It's got to be able to ship. It's got to perform. It's got to melt. It's got to have a little more creamy taste to it. It's got to be able to add a little bit of the Asians like this type of attribute. So it's our farmers who invest in that, the dairy science. So we actually will work across, whether it's CDR in Wisconsin, Cornell, we've got NC State, which is the sensory. So we may design some products in Wisconsin, ship them down to Cornell and do all the consumer sensory, or ship it to Asia and let them do the sensory and development there. So that's how connected we are, linking growth to research right now, how fast we move as we look to also attack exports. 1 out of every 6 tankers are now being exported, right? But that connectivity of, like, the team was just in last week where we're talking about how do we go after some of these Middle East markets and what do they need in the space of Middle East. And again, so our team will say, we every year we've got a budget and we allocate it based upon where the growth opportunities are coming from industry, coming from USDEC saying, hey, here are the export opportunities, because the industry comes to us. And then we also size it based upon the when I say industry, there's the dairy processors and brands. We also work with, like I said, food service and retail companies will come to us and say, hey, can you help us develop it? And a great example of that would be a few years ago, we saw this thing coming with coffee and ready to drink. And so Chapman University in California, they dedicated professors in student curriculum just to coffee with milk and tea with milk. And that's their specialty. So that's how, when we think about our team, we think about innovation is, how do we look where these growth spaces are, and then how do we engage with dairy research and technology across the U.S.? Where can we work to apply the expertise? Because we need professors and students to be able to work in these plants to make the products too. And so that's some of the things we do. And so most recently we just held this the dairy research competition where we put areas of growth, and we talked about digestive health. And when we just 2 years ago we had about I think it was about 12 students at different universities enter the competition. This year we had 19. And there are some really cool concepts in the area of, kefir ice cream to healthy fruit roll-up. Think about a dairy-based fruit roll-up, or last year we had dairy-based gummies. So it's the students bringing it. But the cool thing about these student groups, that's 19 teams, about 3 students. That's right there's 52 students working in dairy and food science across the U.S. That's how we build R&D pipeline to work at the plants or work at the companies in the future too. So that's part of what our team's charter is. We like to say 4 things are our goals: more sales, more commercialized science, more outside investment, so it's not on the farmer's back. So that's why I was talking about inspiring. And the last one is just making sure we have more talent to fuel that growth.
And it sounds like your team has a lot of, moving parts within multiple aspects of these divisions, but the only way all of these parts within your team succeed is through effective communication. So how, especially within this health and wellness area, how do you see the industry assisting you in that communication channel to make that a success for the dairy producer?
Great question. We've got a couple areas where the industry gets together and talks about growth. There's the Innovation Center, which has historically been more pre-competitive and making sure we're defending and supporting the industry, in areas, environment, animal care, things like that. But we got them to form last year a health and wellness task force with the purpose of, how can dairy proactively win in that space. And so we formed a committee, and coming out of that committee, we picked 3 focused things. The first was modernizing the claims and benefits around products and science. Number 2 was, as we did those claims and benefits, we did it with this now, next, future focus. So the now is things where we have amazingly strong science. So that's where I was talking about, like bone health, physical athletic performance, and sustained energy. But we got the industry to align as we looked to things that we said may take a little more investment. And that's that emerging area of call it mental health, cognition, stress, sleep, where there's emerging dairy science, but we said we can move faster if the industry agrees to co-invest with us because to do a clinical research around 200 people versus 20 people can cost you $1 million to do that. And so that's where the industry raised their hands, said, yeah, they'll co-invest if we show them where the consumer claims were motivational. So we're doing that right now. And so in that whole health, like again, the Health and Wellness Committee and the Innovation Center, we're going to package to them, and rather than waiting to complete a playbook, we're going to provide industry brands and leadership with chapters of claims. So we're starting in July by the end of this year, and the final book will be next year in June. So again, 18 chapters of all the ways to talk about it. But there's also, what they call it, the IDFA forum. And one of the things is, I'm actually talking to their leader this week. I want to be front and center to talk about it. That's where the brands go, and the brand CEOs and the head of sales and marketing, and say this, hey, this is how you can grow with dairy in the health and wellness space. So we're actually going to walk through the growth landscape. And these are the spaces, the size, the opportunities, and not stop there. We're actually building product concepts. So think about it. If you're in yogurt, you can attack it with yogurt, and especially drinkables. Drinkables are growing around the world, and it's still emerging here in the U.S. How would you do it with cheese? Think about cheese snacking in some of those spaces. And in other product categories like, whipped cottage cheese. But, some people have sometimes, cottage cheese is getting a rebirth right now. But some people have baggage around cottage cheese. They go, you don't have to call it cottage cheese. Call it, dairy whipped protein. So that's where we're helping people think about talking about categories too, to a modern consumer, and talk about the benefits. Sometimes we get too technical in our dairy industry ourselves. And so it's bringing more of a consumer lens. We got some world-class packaging I could show you guys around inspiring and not just product, but packaging, how to go after those spaces. So those are 2 big things in health and wellness. The third was, like I said, going to this Natural Product Expo and also taking concepts. We're even in the midst of developing prototypes. So imagine where if you're an investor and you're a startup and saying, hey, taste these. These are things that you can do with dairy that plant-based will never be able to do, because the high quality, like you said at the beginning, no one delivered. The reason dairy is the biggest aisle at retail and growing more at retail is we deliver better taste, we deliver better quality, better nutrition, and better value than any other product. And so, I mean, it's a simple concept. You invest behind that category. And I tell people, the great example is Fairlife. I remember when Fairlife launched, 90% of the dairy industry said Fairlife will fail. I'm like, if you market dairy and put it in a package for the consumer, they'll pay more for it. I grew up in the consumer products world, but it's a lot of the companies don't like to put the consumer first. You put the consumers first, and they're paying 3x what they were for a gallon of milk for Fairlife, right? But then I tell them, like, guess what? How much they're paying for Fiji water? It's just water in a fancy bottle, $16 a gallon. Then you look at a lot of the ready-to-drink coffees, like a La Colombe. Convert that to a gallon, it's $30 a gallon, and it's just coffee and milk, right? Packaging and innovation and marketing can make you a lot of money. So that's what I try to do, is say, think about the consumer and you'll make some money, and it'll move volume for us. But sometimes we have such a focus on short-term volume versus long-term consumer intimacy. And so I'm trying to say, how do you bring consumer intimacy, like with traditional CPG companies, when my favorite one, Peggy, is who won the razor war? I grew up with the 10-cent Bic commercials. Who's still using the 10-cent Bic? Who won the right? Procter and Gamble won with Gillette, right? And the Fusion. How much are we paying for? And so I say, I tell our farmers it's the same thing with Ford. Ford, they have a $34,000 Ford truck. Who's right? I mean, most of the people are doing the $50,000 Ford truck, but they also have a $90,000 Raptor, right? So value is a good equation. So that, I think that's where you see a lot of investment for the future is dairy can go up the value chain, and the companies can make a lot more money and keep the consumers happy. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth and health and wellness in that space, because consumers pay for health. I mean, I got 3 daughters, and you guys, you know what they do for skincare and how much. If you look on my table, I've got all kinds of vitamins just around the table from girls. Like, we can do gummies and healthier vitamins and stuff like that. So I'm confident we can do a lot better than some of our other industries in delivering on health and wellness than the plant-based folks, for sure.
So you have a whole consumer test market right in your own home. Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, it has been so enlightening and exciting and encouraging to hear about the work that you're leading through DMI, to be able to maximize the dairy farmer's checkoff dollar, to be able to grow incremental sales of milk, and to play this long-term game and to make sure that it's a winning game. And you're leading those efforts and that strategy to do that in an innovative way. And I don't know about you, Laura, but I'm even more excited about the future of dairy and where 5 years from now and 10 years from now, we are going to have dairy in our lives in a different way. The way our kids are going to be consuming dairy in the Grimace Shake and and beyond. But no, this has been a really valuable conversation, Paul. And we just thank you so much for the work that you are doing on behalf of the dairy industry to be able to think bigger, think innovatively, and create these strategic partnerships for a winning game, whether it's health and wellness or in the food service space, and for taking the time to share that with us today on this podcast.
Thank you, ladies. Again, appreciate it. And again, I just want to thank the farmers. We bring passion for them, and they're the greatest people in the world. And whatever we can do to help them pass that on to the next generation, and we're going to do that at the best we can.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us.
And if you like what you've heard today and want more of it in your ear every week, please take a minute to follow Up Level Dairy Podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
And STtalks on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and Deezer. Or you can learn more about STgenetics by visiting our website at stgen.com. Thank you so much for joining us as we celebrate June Dairy Month. STtalks and Up Level Dairy Podcast are proud to bring you these incredible dairy stories and hope you join us for the next one launching tomorrow.